Very good afternoon, and thanks for clicking on to the Monday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. It is the 12th of August, and we have TD5 in the central tropical Atlantic that is expected to move west-northwest over the next few days, becoming a tropical storm and eventually a hurricane as well. As was made mention of back on Saturday during the Tropical Outlook, the system will become a hurricane and it will take a turn over the western side of the North Atlantic, missing the eastern United States, may have influence on far eastern Canada as we progress through the course of late this week and into the weekend coming up. And eventually we will keep a close eye on this for UK and Irish interests as well, because it may actually eventually turn towards our neck of the woods. So if we click onto this is off the National Hurricane Centre website. The system is, like I say, expected to become a hurricane, may even become a major hurricane over the Western Atlantic, and it is likely to affect Bermuda. Whether it be direct or indirect remains to be seen also, but you can see here that the NHC has tropical storm warnings now out for parts of the far northern Lesser Antilles through Puerto Rico. It looks as if it generally stays to the east of Hispaniola, becomes a hurricane, but notice the turn, it stays well to the east of the United States here, which is obviously good news for folks here, but for folks in Bermuda, it will need to be tracked quite carefully. Looking at the latest IR imagery here, showing the Atlantic Basin, we've got activity over the far East Pacific. There's a TD5 a couple of hundred miles to the east of the Lesser Antilles, as you can see here. Got a frontal system exiting the east side of the United States also, and we have a few other weak waves coming off Africa that will need to be monitored over the next little while or so. But it is a hot start to the working week. We do have, appears, 34 Celsius in a couple of spots. Cambridgeshire, for example, is sitting currently at 34 C, which is the hottest day since last September for the UK, in fact. And we may have a couple of spots in and around that level this afternoon. So while we've got low 30s anywhere from the south shore of the Humber right the way down to London, eastwards into Essex, northern portions of Kent as well, throughout Norfolk and Suffolk here, we have got much fresher conditions further west here, down towards Cornwall, Devon, Somerset, up the western side of Wales. We've only got temperatures in the even mid-teens. For example, Aberporth here only reading 17 Celsius at the moment. On the Clean Peninsula, we've got Aberdaron at 18 Celsius. So feeling reasonably fresh here. It's the same across Western Scotland and Western Ireland. The warmest temperatures the further east you go. For example, we've got 23.5 at Churchtown, Dublin, where we've only got 18 Celsius at Macehead on the Atlantic coast of Ireland. Looking further north, we also have the same kind of story, generally low to even mid-20s at Lookers and Fife, while we've only got 9 Celsius at Bulick Naba, or 8.6 to be exact, but bear in mind that's a good 763 metres above sea level. At All Bay on the west coast, near sea level, we've got 16.6 Celsius and 15 Celsius at Stornoway. Meanwhile, we've got 20 at Inverness, Dalcross, Kinloss reading 23 Celsius at the moment. So there's a fair bit of variety in terms of the temperature profile at the moment across the UK. So looking at the GFS, in fact, before we actually get there, we'll have a look at the 850s of the ECMWF. So there's the very, very warm conditions that we've got at the moment. We've got what would that be? The 15 Celsius isotherm reaching all the way to the northwest of England at the moment here, with even the 20 Celsius isotherm reaching the far southwest of the UK at the moment. Slightly less hotter across Scotland, Ireland and Northern Ireland, as can be seen in this graphic here. Now, as we play over the next few days, we've got areas of low pressure, and this has been the mainstay of the August period so far. We've had low pressure to the west, higher pressure to the east-southeast. We've had generally southwesterly flow, so it has been by far the warmest month of the meteorological summer so far. Obviously, we are about to end it in just over 2 weeks' time, which is quite hard to believe. But you notice here that we do eventually see frontal systems. We've got a series of fronts, in fact, moving from west to east over the UK and Ireland. That's going to bring fresher conditions. So once again, like we've seen June, July, and now August as well, these surges of heat have been reasonably short-lived. It hasn't been predominantly long duration of heat by any stretch of the imagination, and that has been the mainstay of the summer overall. Short-lived spells of hot conditions interspersed with largely fresh conditions blowing in off the Atlantic here. So you notice that by the time we reach the middle portions of the week, we've got the next frontal system moving through with fresher air for more or less everybody. And then we've got this kind of contrast between north and south over the UK. But notice generally low pressure anchored to the north, higher pressure to the south, winds coming in off the Atlantic with a series of frontal systems. We did see quite a thundery outbreak during the first half of today, moving from west to east across the British Isles, especially up across Scotland, parts of England, Wales, North and West England, and also Wales. I'm not 100% sure about Ireland or Northern Ireland. Obviously, you know that I'm in Brazil at the moment, so I'm not 100% sure exactly where has seen the thunder and lightning. But I certainly know that across Scotland, we've seen quite the line of thunderstorms moving across the country during the course of today. In the sunshine, feeling fairly pleasant, as I've already alluded to. And then as we play right the way through the rest of this week into the weekend here, we're generally in fresher air. And that is going to be the story going forward here. Now, looking at the GFS ensemble, you can see here the upper air pattern. So we go through the next few days here. That low pressure deepening to the west of the British Isles, opening the door to that hot air from the south, with temperatures in the low 40s, northern Spain, southwestern France. The core of that heat that was down across southwest France and northern Spain yesterday is now anchored over Paris up towards the London area, where we've seen temperatures in Paris, for example, reach the upper 30s. In London, 32 to 34 Celsius has been the general story. Now, as you can see here, we've got the low to the west, high to the east, southerly winds, but there's going to be a series of fronts that move through, and it's going to clean the air out over the course of the rest of this week. And then you notice here, strong low pressure near Iceland, higher pressure to the south, westerly winds, always that bit cooler, fresher, wetter the further west and north you go over the UK. Drier, warmer, sunnier the further south and east you go over the British Isles. And that has generally been the story throughout the month of August so far. Continue to play through the loop here. You see that the upper air pattern does not really change much over the next week or so here, with low pressure to the west, northwest, higher pressure to the south, southeast. Looking at the temperature anomalies for the upcoming 5-day period, looks like this here. So we've got the warm south, cool north story. Into the 6 to 10 day, you can see here that we actually go slightly below average according to the GFS ensemble, which is quite interesting. This is the period between the 17th and the 22nd of August. Day 11 through 15, this is the 22nd through the 27th. Again, average to slightly below average conditions across the majority of the UK, with the exceptions of eastern and southeastern England. If you notice here, it's average to slightly above average. Looking at precipitation anomalies here, looks like this. So going back to the upcoming 7 days, you can see here largely drier than average, but we do have a frontal system moving through that's going to bring spells of heavy persistent rain for a period of time. Clears out, sunshine, warmer conditions, but generally speaking, you can see that it is showing up as largely drier than average across the majority of the UK and Ireland here. Finally, looking at the ECM overview chart here, you can see if it goes back to an updates, hopefully. So let's play through the next few days. So there's these areas of low pressure to the west, higher pressure to the east-southeast. That's been the open door to that hot air that's been drifting northwards over Iberia, France, and into the southeastern UK. But that frontal system that pushed through Scotland during the course of earlier today, that has kind of reinforced that little fresher conditions that has simply not allowed the hot air from the southeast of England to bodily move northwards. That frontal system shut the door to that hot air going northwards and essentially has escaped the northern half of the British Isles. If we look at the UK specifically here, the ECMWF is showing the series of frontal systems moving through. So as we played through the course of today, there's that hot air across the south and southeast of the British Isles. The frontal system associated with that low pressure moved from west to east, generating heavy rainfall and thunder and lightning. But it did not penetrate the further south you went, so therefore the heat continued to build over the southeast of the UK. Then as we move into the first half of tomorrow, we've got another frontal system moving from west to east, associated with the next area of low pressure. That will push through. That is going to steadily start to drop the temperatures, especially across the southeast, by the way, where the temperatures will go from close to mid-30s down to mid to upper 20s tomorrow, then down to the mid to low 20s during the course of Wednesday. So we'll have that kind of 2, 3, 4 degree drop each day over the next 72 hours or so. Then we've got a little bit of a break during the course of Wednesday. And then we've got another system that moves through, and this could be quite significant. This may have disruption associated with it. Fairly heavy, persistent rain moving through Ireland, Northern Ireland, southern, central and northern Scotland here, as you can see here. This area of low pressure kind of deepening, but there may have a bit of a wave along that boundary, which means that we could have some fairly significant amounts of rain during the course of Thursday. So the steady nature of this, the orientation being from a kind of west-southwest to east-northeast, means that we're going to see that persistent rain for a fairly prolonged period of time. So we could have a good 4 to 6 hours of fairly heavy, persistent rain. That means that rainfall totals will mount up with this feature moving through gradually over. So it's not a frontal system that kind of sweeps from west to east, but it kind of gets stuck in one place: northwestern England, West Wales, northwest Wales, southern and central Scotland. We could have some issues with this feature moving through. Then once that moves through, we're in a kind of west to southwesterly flow, and it could mean that we have some fairly windy conditions as well. Could see gales, for example, in west northwest Ireland, Northern Ireland and western Scotland during the latter half of this week here. So looks as if we're going to have this continuation of the pattern, generally staying cooler and more unsettled the further north you go, warmer, drier the further south you go, but temperatures closer to average the further south you go compared to what we have at this moment in time. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you hopefully tomorrow with more. Bye for now.